is your vision and hope for our world, and is there still hope?
Well, certainly there is hope. The problem is not the earth or nature. The problem is that human civilization is threatened. So our mistakes, historically and continuing now, are endangering us. Nature, life will continue in some form because it's evolutionary and eternal. So for life and the earth, I'm very optimistic. For human civilization, we have to keep working hard because it's endangered now.
Yes.
I think what you see for human beings, humanity, we're a single species, but we've been trying to differentiate ourselves and act as individuals. And individuals, of course we are individuals, but this is a bit egotistical and not a very good strategy as a species, because we're now trying to compete with one another where we really need to collaborate with one another. And so we're in the situation that we have to have an evolutionary step in our consciousness. So this would be like a paradigm shift, like when the flat earth understanding in Europe was prevalent.
Yes.
And then it was just fundamentally wrong, but there were institutions that said, no, you have to believe in flat earth, flat earth is everything. But of course it was wrong, and scientists and thinkers, they began to understand that the earth is round. It goes around the sun, and it spins and it wobbles, and they had a lot of empiric evidence. And when the people first heard this, they had to decide whether the strong institutions like the church could tell them, a dogma, the earth is flat, you have to believe it, or whether they should believe the scientific evidence and the understanding. And what happened was that after a while it was still like the law that you had to believe that the earth was flat, nobody really believed it anymore. So it became like a laughing stock, the emperor has no clothes kind of a situation. And at that point, it shifts. That's the paradigm shift. You can't believe in it anymore, and nobody believes in it, so it has to fall away. Once our consciousness understands that evolutionarily we have a trend which is always more biodiversity, always more biomass, always more accumulated organic material. That is consistent since the beginning of evolutionary time, and then humans intervene. And then you see the biodiversity, biomass, and accumulated organic matter going down. Well, that's because we were ignorant of the purpose of it, and because we were greedy and said, well, we can just do whatever we want, and that we could value what we made higher than the natural systems. That the system infiltrates and retains moisture, it photosynthesizes, so it balances gas exchange in the atmosphere, it creates soil fertility, it does everything that regulates everything, the temperatures, the surface temperatures. So we're changing those. And when we allow or align our behaviors with evolutionary outcomes, then the earth self-regulates itself as it has since the beginning of time. So we need to kind of be more simple. But that doesn't mean we have less fun or that it's less comfortable. We can design, it's a design issue.
Yes.
Like mostly now we're wasting. So we have to stop wasting, and we have to design very carefully and very beautiful. So our cities can be more beautiful, more comfortable, more healthy, and our food can be more healthy and more more perennials rather than annuals. No chemicals, no industrial activity. It can be organic, it can be healthy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, and our natural zones we have to be a little careful about choosing all the species and let nature have some space. So it's much better in the future.
Yeah.
The ecosystem restoration camps are something that's very close to my heart, because for 25 years I've been studying and documenting and communicating about ecological restoration. And the fact is, we can restore large-scale degraded ecosystems. So if we can, why don't we do that? And there's been lots of discussions and policy discussions and monetary, funds, climate funds and green funds and all this stuff. But that money just seems to swirl around and it never really lands on the earth. And the thing, so I was always like hopeful, but that we could do it, but it never seemed like we got to really giant scale where we could restore the whole earth. And then I realized, actually, it's not the people who are writing policies, it's not the people who are writing checks who actually do restoration, it's the people themselves. And so if the people themselves choose, because they want to survive, they want their children and future generations to live, then all they have to do, they don't need to ask permission to restore the earth, they have to just restore the earth. So ecosystem restoration camps is a method which lets people self-organize, self-govern, and immediately begin to sequester carbon, restore organic soils, plant trees, and own it, be sovereign over themselves and over the earth, rather than give away the power to somebody who and basically the leaders now are not showing us much ability. Yeah, they're terrible. We have terrible leaders all over the place.
Why should
we don't have to listen to them. They're terrible.
So from bottom up, it's really the way.
That's it. We need to act as a species on a planetary scale, and we need to make sure that every single inch, every single bit of the Earth is completely functional. And when we do that, then we're going to have a much more abundant life. We're going to have much greater joy in our community, and our life will be profound and meaningful because we're saving human civilization instead of going out and buying things and entertaining ourselves.
Yes.
We can actually reduce the temperatures on the surface of the earth, physically reduce the temperatures. So this is what we're worried about, is temperature changes. So let's change the temperatures. What happens with the canopy is that the solar radiation is interrupted by the top of the canopy. And so below that, the light radiation is dappled, it's changed. And moisture, like rainfall, it doesn't directly hit. It hits the top and it comes down. So if you measure the differences between the surface temperature below like an ancient forest or an exposed soils, it's huge. It's 40, 50 degrees centigrade. I've 45 degrees centigrade differences. Now that's an anomaly. That's huge in the middle of the desert, but that's very, very high. 10, 20 degrees centigrade is normal in places. So if we look at, say, North Africa, the Mediterranean, Central Asia, Sub-Saharan Sahel region in Africa, those places are massively degraded. and they have been degraded over historical time, and they could be restored. And if we restored them, the temperatures, the surface temperatures would be much lower. That's what we need to do. So people can do that. Physically, we go there and we do it. We're doing that in Spain now. It's working well.
Yeah.
I think you have to realize that right now the economics is corrupted. So we have a global economy, which unfortunately for Europe comes from the Europeans, and it crushed and suppressed the indigenous cultures, many ancient cultures, which were a slightly higher philosophically and spiritually than materialism or militarism. So militarism and materialism became the factor. I have a bigger gun, I shoot you, your land is my land. Well, that's a very bad point of view, you know. And so we don't really believe that. If we evolve into humane and spiritual beings, we don't believe that. But that is now spread all over the world. It's just not a good idea to be materialistic. We don't need more to have a higher standard of living or a higher quality of life. We need to have less. We need to have more health, more beauty, but more love, but less stuff. So I think that the ecosystem restoration camps is a way that everyone can work together. So I never really recognized that in the big institutional developments. They always used so much money and they didn't have a very big result. So what I realized was actually if we all work together as a species and we just grow trees and plant trees and we grow organic soils together and we all learn how to do this from the top experts in the world and everybody collaborates, and then all the understandings shift like through a network, like a mycelial network. So everyone has access to all the information and all the knowledge. And everybody can kind of work together, they can go different places. And I think especially we need from the developed world where many resources and much damage has been done, we need to share what we have with the people in the other parts of the world, but not in some abstract way. We need to actually go there, know them, and work together with them as equals, treat them equally, work with them, and restore those landscapes. That will address questions like migration and refugees, and because people are fleeing those areas, it will create peace. So ecosystem restoration camps is about raising our consciousness by actively doing something which every day sequesters carbon, every day enlarges, grows, so more and more people are doing this, and that becomes the norm. And that also allows us to practice not having so many possessions, not having transactional economics, but live together, eat together, work together without like pulling out our credit cards or our money, because that means we're trapped in this transactional thing. Let's act like human beings rather than act like Homo economicus or something. So I think the camps are something that is really taking off, and by the end of the year I think we'll have camps in every continent around the world, and I think we'll have a lot more members. We encourage people to join as supporting members, because if we just all share a little bit, just a tiny amount, we're asking people like, would you share 10 euros per month? So if everybody shares 10 euros per month, but we have 1 million, that's a huge amount of money, which can go out there to plant trees, to teach people how to grow soils, and we don't have to have big infrastructure. We just need composting toilets and good kitchen systems. So everybody eats together, everybody's working together, and you know, we have in this way, with a small amount, it's the least expensive and the most effective way to restore the earth.